Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a story that seriously has it all. We're talking geopolitical paranoia, revolutionary pride, and an architectural marvel that, frankly, just defies belief. We're looking at the Citadelle Laferrie. It's this immense, sprawling stone fortress rising right out of the clouds in Haiti. But this isn't just a story about a building. It's a deep dive into the psychology of a newly freed people who were pushed to the absolute brink of exhaustion by an autocratic king, all to secure their hard-won liberty.
So let's just dive right into it. How exactly does a newly freed nation manage to construct an impenetrable fortress on the very top of a 3,000-foot mountain peak? And maybe more importantly, how did they do it using massive cannons, molasses, and cow's blood? I mean, it literally sounds like something out of a dark fantasy novel, right? But this is 100% historical reality. The sheer physical impossibility of what we're about to explore is just staggering. To understand why anyone would even attempt this in the first place, we really have to understand the absolute terror that gripped the nation right at its birth.
Part 1. Geopolitical Paranoia, the Fear of Re-enslavement.
To really wrap our heads around this deep-seated fear, you have to imagine the global climate right after the Haitian Revolution. They had just accomplished the unthinkable by overthrowing their colonizers. But that victory brought absolute isolation. On January 1, 1804, Jean-Jacques Dessalines officially declared Haiti's independence. Now that should have been a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. But look at how fast the narrative flips here. Between 1804 and 1805, the threat of a French reconquest was looming large. The joy of independence was just immediately swallowed up by a dark, really urgent panic. By 1805, Dessalines had to initiate this massive, nationwide defense strategy.
And if you're wondering why that panic existed, well, we just have to look at their neighbors. The United States, Great Britain, Spain, all these massive slave-owning empires flat out refused to legally recognize Haiti's sovereignty. They were completely, totally surrounded. In France, the French government was openly discussing launching a war of reconquest. Their stated goal was to crush the newborn state and literally re-enslave the entire population. Dessalines knew they couldn't defend the coast against a naval invasion, so he ordered a radical pivot. Abandon the coastal cities, move the population inland, and build massive fortifications on the highest mountain peaks.
Part 2. The Brutal Mountain Ascent, Building on Bishop's Bonnet.
This absolutely massive undertaking was assigned to a brilliant, battle-hardened general named Henri Christophe. He chose this incredibly strategic, cloud-piercing summit that overlooked the northern plains and the port city of Cap-Haïtien. The mountain was called Bonnet à l'Évêque, or the Bishop's Bonnet. But building on a 3,000-foot peak meant facing logistical hurdles that led to this unbelievable number, 20,000. Lacking any pack animals that could actually navigate the sheer, muddy precipices of this mountain, the burden fell entirely on human shoulders. We're talking about an immense mobilization of human labor. 20,000 workers were tasked with manually hauling massive blocks of stone, thousands of barrels of gunpowder, and hundreds of multi-ton bronze and iron cannons up a treacherous, practically vertical mountainside. And get this, the sensory details of how they actually put this fortress together are just wild. The materials were a bizarre mix. They used local limestone blocks, sure, but the mortar binding those huge walls together? It was this thick mixture of quicklime, molasses, and cow's blood. The sheer absurdity of hauling all these materials up a mountain is matched only by the extreme brutality of the effort. Hundreds of workers died from physical exhaustion, horrific accidents, and falls during 15 relentless years of building.
Part 3. A Nation Divided. The Schism of 1806.
So, right in the middle of this existential threat from outside forces, Emperor Dessalines was assassinated. And his death didn't bring peace, not even close. It threw this fragile, newborn country into a bitter, bloody civil war, completely splitting Haiti into two entirely separate nations. Down in the south, you had a republic led by President Alexander Pétain. It was democratic, and actually, Pétain even provided financial backing for Simón Bolívar. But up in the north, General Henri Christophe took control. He crowned himself King Henri I in 1811 and established a super autocratic, highly militarized state. And for King Henri, this mountain fortress, the Citadelle, became a deeply personal, absolute obsession.
King Henri designed this fortress for one specific, truly apocalyptic scenario. This was his ultimate stronghold strategy. If the French invaded, his plan was total scorched earth. The royal family, the court, and a garrison of 5,000 soldiers would retreat up the mountain and lock themselves inside the citadel. Then, they'd burn the crops in all the valleys below so the enemy would literally starve, while the fortress garrison would survive a multi-month siege, launching guerrilla attacks from up in the clouds. It was basically the ultimate doomsday prep.
Part 4. High-tech mountain stronghold. Inside the fortress.
Now, if you're going to survive a multi-month siege, a standard fort just isn't going to cut it. King Henri had to build a completely self-contained military city, and it honestly stands as an incredible architectural marvel for its time. The brilliant engineering hidden inside these walls is fascinating. Just look at the water allocation. Christophe designed a highly sophisticated network of internal gutters that caught rainwater and filtered it directly into massive underground cisterns. This guaranteed a pure water supply completely immune to enemy poisoning. Then you have the royal quarters buried deep within the stone walls, featuring a fully furnished palace wing, operating bakeries, and yes, dungeons. And finally, an absolutely massive ammunition depot.
And what exactly was all that ammunition for? 365 massive cannons. Think back for a second to the thousands of workers manually hauling these up those muddy mountain paths. King Henry acquired 365 cannons from various European powers to defend his stronghold. And there is a profound, almost poetic historical irony here. Many of these guns were captured directly from French warships or purchased through covert trade networks with the British. They were fully prepared to fire European guns right back at European empires.
Part 5. The Silver Bullet. The tragic end of the builder.
But here's the crazy twist. The French never actually came. Instead, the real threat came from within. By 1820, as the fortress finally neared completion, King Henri's rule had grown increasingly tyrannical. The exact same forced labor policies that built his impenetrable walls ended up completely alienating his own people, leading to a rapid, almost Shakespearean downfall. In August 1820, Christophe suffered a massive paralyzing stroke. Suddenly, this fierce, battle-hardened autocrat couldn't even ride his horse to review his troops. Sensing his weakness, his military officers began plotting a mutiny. By late 1820, revolutionary forces were actively marching on his nearby palace. Realizing his army was deserting him, on October 8th, King Henri chose to take his own life. And as the legend dictates, he did so by shooting himself with a silver bullet.
What happened next seriously reads like a dark thriller. His remaining loyalists took his body in the dead of night and secretly carried it up that same brutal mountain path. They buried the king inside the courtyard of his unfinished citadel. And to protect his corpse from being desecrated by the approaching rebels, they completely encased his remains in quicklime. The builder was literally swallowed up by his own creation.
Part 6. Legacy of Unfired Guns. A Monument to Sovereignty.
So what is the ultimate legacy of this incredible place? Following Christophe's death, the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Republic actually reunified under a single banner. And the great twist of history? That terrifying French invasion, the entire all-consuming reason the Citadel was built in the first place, never came. Those 365 massive cannons were never fired in anger. But you know, the fortress itself did fight a different kind of war, against nature, and it won. The Citadel survived multiple massive regional earthquakes, most notably the devastating 1842 quake that completely leveled the nearby city of Cap Haïtien. Through it all, the Citadel's impossibly thick, angled foundations remained largely untouched, cementing its status as an absolute triumph of engineering. Today, the fortress stands exactly as this quote describes it, an impossible, mountaintop shield to declare that they would never be slaves again. It is a raw, totally physical declaration of hard-won freedom, forged by a newly liberated people who quite literally moved mountains to ensure their survival. But I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder here. Is a fortress truly a monument to liberty if it was built through tyranny? I mean, thousands suffered and died in the mud, hauling stone and cannons to build a shield against enslavement, all ordered by a king who ruled with absolute, crushing authority. It's a profound, honestly kind of unsettling contradiction, isn't it? But that's exactly what makes the Citadelle Laferrie one of the most fascinating and complex monuments on Earth. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this incredible story leaves you wanting to learn even more.